Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. This is the 32nd part of What If Deku Had a Robot Wolf. I hope you enjoy. Link to the original story and author in the description. Chapter 32, My Hero Academia, Revengeance. And Real Steel will be passing to the second round. Midnight announced as the arm wrestling match between Ijiro and Real Steel, really should learn his name at some point, ended, with Real Steel being the winner. Izumi was waiting in the waiting room, Durandal sitting beside her as they waited to be called for their next match. Their match against Mei. So, just to be sure, no using the quirk emulator, Durandal inquired. He already knew not to use the emulator at all during such a public event, but I paid to be sure. Izumi nodded yep. No using it. We have to keep the emulator a secret. Can't let the league find out about what you can do, or anyone for that matter. Don't worry, I'll keep it inactive. Durandal said. Any idea what Mei's going to bring out to fight us? Knowing her, and all the things she's built, everything. Izumi replied. You saw what she did against Tentacle. She kicked his arse. To be fair, her mother is Lady Nagant, so she's probably been trained on how to fight. So let's not go into this expecting this to end just as easily as the others. Durandal nodded. Understood. Now the question is, armored wolf mode or just wolf mode? We'll see when we get out there, Izumi said. No point in going out there in armored wolf mode, it might not be needed. Besides, she didn't have much experience fighting in that mode. The last time she wore her wolf armor was during the entrance exam. Hopefully, she wouldn't need to wear it. She couldn't tell what the mad inventor who somehow showed up in her bed last night, despite the door most definitely being locked and Durandal on guard mode, was going to do. But she stopped questioning Mei's antics the day she came down and witnessed the girl blow up the toaster after modifying it. She was banned from modifying any of the appliances in the dorm after that. Or anything that the others used regularly. It was not long after the arm wrestling match between men as President Mike had called it before they were called to the arena. Come on, Durandal. Let's see what Mei has in store for us. Durandal nodded as he followed Izumi out of the waiting room and towards the tunnel. Mei was certainly going to make this fight interesting. More interesting than the previous one, that is. Alright, folks. I hope you're ready, because here comes the second round. President Mike announced loudly. First out, she's the unstoppable bunny of Class 1A. Please welcome back, Yusako. Stop calling me a bunny. Izumi thought as she and Durandal walked out onto the field. And her opponent. President Mike continued. She's already beaten one hero course student with the help of her equipment, dash. And guns. Kana added loudly from the teacher's box. But can that help her beat another? Please welcome, Mei Hatsum. Izumi looked forwards towards Mei as she walked towards the ring, the pink hair girl ginning like mad and dash. She wasn't wearing any of her babies. What's this? President Mike suddenly said, both combatants have robot companions with them. Robot companions? Izumi's eyes went wide as they walked up to the ring. Mei had a robot with her? When the hell did she have time to build that? Sure enough, when they walked up onto the ring, they saw a robot wolf walking beside Mei, previously hidden from sight by the concrete slab that had been between them. The robot beside Mei was similar to Durandal but was different in a few ways. Its body was colored a dark bronze and rib-like, and its face had 3 blue lines where the eyes should be. What the? Midnight remarked at the sight of the 2 robots on the field. Who the fuck is that? Durandal asked, not at all sounding pleased. He had a feeling on how Mei was able to make that robot beside her. Mei laughed. Izumi, Durandal, meet my ultimate baby. Isaac. Greetings. Isaac said cheerfully, the robot's voice sounding exactly like Mei's. Both Izumi and Durandal stood there, shocked by Mei's creation. Once again, when the hell did she have time to make that? What AI level does Isaac have? Durandal inquired. If they were going up against another robot, he wanted to know what AI level they were at. Beta Mei replied like it was a casual thing to say. Started working on her the first day of UA. Izumi's jaw dropped. May had, at some point, made a beta-level AI sometime during the past 3 weeks. May made a beta-level AI, something that should normally take months. Months. And she did it in weeks, maybe less. You are, Izumi, Midnight said, looking directly at Durandal. I can't help but notice that you have Durandal with you. Why is he here? Because I asked her to bring him along for this fight. May replied, answering for Izumi. Yeah, she did, Izumi added nervously, and now I know why, you wanted to see how Durandal will fare against Isaac. May nodded, not an ounce of shame on her yep. And where better to show off my greatest baby to date than against you and Durandal during the UA Sports Festival. Midnight sighed, alright, I'll allow you to have Durandal fight alongside you, Izumi. But just for this match. Thank you, Sensei, Izumi said with a smile before focusing back on May. Midnight shook her head before straightening herself out. Alright then, she said as she was about to raise her whip, before being stopped by a hyperactive May. Wait a minute. There's something I need to do first. May said before turning towards her mechanical companion Isaac, initiate armor mode. Roger that. Isaac complied as she jumped behind May before jumping at her back, opening up and reforming around May's body. In 10 seconds, May was wearing a suit of armor reminiscent of the armor from the Dead Space franchise. Izumi's jaw dropped as she replicated armored wolf mode. She muttered out. Now she knew why Durandal sounded so pissed off about Isaac. She was a replication of him, using the designs and specs May was given of him when she was making his hardware updates. But she could inquire about this with the crazy woman later. Right now, she needed to get serious. Durandal, armored wolf mode, now. Got it. Durandal replied before he quickly broke up and reformed around Izumi, forming into her wolf armor. May laughed loudly. Yes. This is what I'm talking about. This is going to be great. Well, Midnight said, licking her lips, this sure just got interesting, she said before she raised her whip. Are both contestants ready? She asked, getting a nod from both students. Well then. Begin. The moment Midnight cracked her whip, the speakers cracked to life and boss music started to play through them. At the same time, May charged forwards and sent a kick towards Izumi. It was only thanks to the combat training Sir Night-Eye had put her through that she was able to dodge it. She's playing the instrumental version of A Stranger I Remain. Durandal said as Izumi ducked under another kick. She's turned this into a boss battle. I can see that. Izumi said as she ducked under yet another kick before retaliating with a jab to May's chest, one for all coursing through her body as the two armored combatants started to duke it out. Meanwhile, up in the commentator's box, did she just hack the speaker system? Present Mike asked. Yes, Eraserhead replied bluntly. Should we be worried about that? Present Mike asked. Probably, Eraserhead replied, downing a full mug of coffee. Meanwhile, in the teacher's box, Kana was smirking like mad whilst Powerload let out a defeated sigh. I knew it. I fucking knew it. I knew it was suspicious that she wanted to win her first match. Well, at least she didn't hijack the match to show off her equipment. Like you said she would, Ectoplasm remarked. I believe that means that I win the pot, Hound Dog said, smirking behind his muzzle. Wait, what pot? Mandalay asked, sitting in the teacher's box alongside the rest of the wild pussycats. Since they were now working at UA, they could sit with the teachers. We have a few betting pools going on, mainly about the students. Vlad King replied. It's nothing harmful, just betting to see what they're going to do. Like who's going to win which match during the sports festival, who will win overall, and who's going to date who. I'm sorry, did I hear that right, or did you just say that you make bets on who your students are dating? Pixie Bob asked, sounding surprised. You are, Ryuko, that's rich coming from the woman who made a bet with Shino over who out of the two of you will end up dating our intern first, Tiger said with a frown. What can I say, he's such an adorable lizard, Pixie Bob replied with a smile. Still, is this normal? Yes, Snipe replied, Midnight especially likes to bet on who's going to end up with who among the students. Why, she's already betting the hell out of Izumi's little snuggle squad becoming a polyamory. Oh, okay, Mandalay said nervously. Why do you guys do that anyway? We like to have fun here, Hound Dog, still smirking. You'll get used to it, Blossom said, putting a hand on Mandalay's shoulder. Mandalay sighed. She was used to this kind of chaos, yes, but she never expected it to come from her fellow heroes. She probably should have expected this. Ah well, it was somewhat harmless fun. Meanwhile, in Kurogiri's bar, Tamura was watching the fight between Yusako and this May girl with great interest. Okay, so when did this become Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance 2? He asked with a smile, enjoying this fight more than the others. Not that I'm complaining, I would kill for a sequel to that game, he said before an idea popped into his mind. Hey, would it be possible for me to get a suit of armor like that? I wouldn't recommend it, the voice of the doctor said. Your quirk would probably destroy the armor. Plus we lack the resources to build something that advanced. Shit, Tamura cursed. Well, there goes that idea. Guess I'll just have to settle with being a cyborg then. Tamura, you are not deliberately getting yourself mangled just so you can become a cyborg, Kurogiri said with a sigh. Cybernetics unfortunately have a tendency to interfere with quirks after all. Plus if you lost both your arms then you won't be able to use your quirk. You can't decay things with your feet. Drat, Tamura said with a sigh before focusing back on the TV, his short-lived dream of becoming a cyborg villain thrown into the trash. I'm going to need a power-up of my own if I want to go up against that Yusako boss. All I have right now are debuffs. I'm sure we can come up with something to help you, Tamura, the voice of Sensei. But I am interested in why you called the one who goes by Yusako as a boss. The hero brats from the USJ weren't just some low-level mooks, they were high-level units, Tamura replied. They said that Yusako got first place in the UA entrance exam, so clearly she's one of the strongest there, making her a mini-boss of sorts. They're standing in my way towards All Might. I won't be able to beat them with low-level mooks, not now that I've got some third new faction working in the shadows and getting in the way of things. I'll need some high-level units of my own if I want to stand a chance against both groups. So, we need to recruit a group of unique and powerful individuals then, Kurogiri remarked, just like Embers of Ariso. Embers of what? Tamura asked, sounding confused. That better not be another one of your porn games, Kurogiri. Kurogiri sighed before muttering uncultured brat before saying like the Fire Emblem games. Oh, right, Tamura remarked. Why didn't you just say so? Of course, like the Fire Emblem games. Although I will have to be careful with how I use my elite units, I don't want to risk losing any to permadeath now that I know that's a mechanic. Do not worry, young Tamura. I'm sure you will find some way to manage, Sensei said. As I've said, you are in charge of the league. But, for now, rest. You're still recovering from the USJ. Yes, Sensei. Meanwhile, inside the Ark. Sir, we may have a problem. Ark announced. Paxton let out an annoyed sigh, in the middle of working on something. Not now, Ark. I'm busy. I know you are, sir, Ark replied, but I thought you should know that it looks like someone may have just replicated Durandal. What? Paxton shouted before he grabbed a nearby screen and pulled it close. Ark quickly changed the display to that of the UA Sports Festival, showing the match between Izumi and May. Both of whom were wearing armor. I believe, sir, that the robot May is wearing is a direct replication of Durandal. Ark said. I don't believe she's been able to replicate the quirk emulator, since it is located within Durandal's brain and contains rare components and metals, such as Karasorum. But from what I can see, she's at least replicated Armored Wolf mode. Paxton watched the two students fight, focusing on the armor that May girl was wearing. It was annoying how similar the two suits were. If he knew something like this was going to happen, he would have had someone there watching this shit. Keep an eye on this May Hatsum, Paxton ordered, and find out everything you can about her. I want to know how she was able to replicate my work. As you wish, Ark replied. Paxton quickly went back to work, but he kept an eye on the screen, especially on the girl who had replicated Durandal. He did not know who this May girl was, but he was sure as hell going to find out how she was able to replicate one of his most advanced machines. Back in the ring, Izumi and May were still fighting and had been for the past minute or so, with no sign of stopping. Izumi had put May's durability down to wearing Isaac. Both suits gave their users better protection against blows, so it'll take a lot more than just a few punches to take either of them down. Well, looks like she's going to have to kick it up a notch. Dodging out of the way of a punch, Izumi sent several jabs into Mei's side. Several of them connected, but they only sent Mei staggering back a bit before she recovered. Yes. That's what I'm talking about. She shouted before she charged once more. Okay, so she's made a complete replica of me. Which looks to include the shock and impact absorption systems. That's fucking fun. Durandal remarked. How did she even do that anyway? He inquired, making it so that only Izumi could hear him. How can she so easily replicate the work of Dr. Paxton? Well, it has been 11 years since he made you, Izumi replied, Durandal having made this conversation private so that Mei couldn't overhear them. Technology has progressed a lot, she said before she sent a roundhouse kick towards Mei's head. The crazy inventor dodged the kick, giggling like mad. A pair of small thrusters on her back suddenly kicked in and helped her right herself, right into Izumi's follow-up kick. Okay, that didn't work out as well as I had planned. You built thrusters into Isaac? Izumi remarked as she sent several jabs towards Mei. Yes. Mei replied as she dodged several, but not all of Izumi's attacks. Why are you surprised? Durandal has thrusters as well. He does? Izumi asked, not knowing what Mei was talking about. Oh, thrusters. She said, realizing what the girl was talking about. Durandal had small thrusters in his legs, but she had no idea how to use them, so she just forgot about it. Maybe she should figure out how to use them. But later, right now she was busy fighting a crazy inventor whose idea of measuring someone is to grope their entire body. It's strange, awkward, and kind of nice. Although there was no way Izumi would admit to liking it when Mei measured her. Anyway, worry about technical stuff later, right now she has a fight to win. With a cry, she charged forwards, jumped, and delivered a dive kick right into Mei's chest. The hit sent Mei flying backwards and onto her back. Unfortunately, Izumi was also on the floor, so she couldn't make use of this opening. Both girls quickly got back up at the same time, Mei clearly ecstatic. Oh yeah. This is great. We're really showing off what these babies can do. Please do not call me a baby, Durandal said, not really liking the terminology. Let's kick it up a gear. Mei said before she activated a hidden jetpack she built into Isaac and floated upwards. Time to give them a real show. She shouted before she flew towards Izumi. Did I forget to mention that the lyrics for the boss music she was playing also started to kick in? There's a phase 2. Izumi shouted as she ducked under a flying kick. Of course, there's a phase 2, there's always a phase 2. Durandal said, if you had played Metal Gear Rising when I told you to you would understand this. I'm sorry, but that's not my kind of game. Izumi said as she ducked under another flying kick. I prefer dating sims and games about heroes. What about Battlefield Dying Star you play along with Hitoshi and Nido? Durandal asked. Or Stellaris Ochako got you playing? Now is not the time, Durandal. Izumi shouted as she dived out of the way of Mei once again. This kept up for about a minute, with Izumi mostly on the defensive. She managed to get a few hits in on Mei, but the best she could do was knock her off balance for a few seconds. Damn it! She's too fast with that jetpack. And I'm not waiting for her to run out of fuel. Izumi said as she ducked under another kick. I need to stop her from flying around, but how? My air blasts won't work, and I'm too experienced with whips to grab her and pull her down. Plus I've never fired an air blast whilst wearing Durandal, she thought as Mei once again prepared to charge her from the air. Izumi weighed the pros and cons of the possible actions she could do, only to go fuck it, plus ultra. And charged Mei. One for all courses throughout her entire body, but she pulled slightly a little more into her legs. Mei continued to fly towards her, not altering her course in the slightest. Good, this might work then. Izumi continued to rush towards Mei, waiting until the two of them were very close. She then poured more of one for all into her legs and jumped over Mei. Her legs hurt a lot, but it allowed her to completely jump over Mei. She then pointed a hand down towards Mei as she flew over her and flicked her finger. The resulting air blast sent Mei straight into the ground, sending up a cloud of dust around them. Izumi was sure her finger was broken, but she had succeeded in grounding Mei. For about 4 seconds. The jetpack installed into her armor was still active, resulting in her flying forwards out of the ring and into the wall. Her jetpack sputtered for a few seconds before dying, causing Mei to fall. When Izumi landed, she quickly turned towards Mei and regretted it as her legs hurt like hell. Well, that's what she gets for pouring too much energy into her legs. She also only just noticed that the boss music had finished in sync with Mei's defeat, which was rather odd. Mei Hatsum is out of bounds. Midnight said, Yusako takes the match. Izumi quickly rushed out of the ring, ignoring the pain in her legs, as well as Mike talking about the match. She was more focused on checking that Mei was alright. She did just fly into a wall. Mei! Izumi shouted as she rushed over to the girl and crouched down beside her, concerned about the girl's lack of movement. Up until she suddenly bolted up and looked at her, probably with a maniacal smile on her face. That was perfect. Mei said, we really got to show off our babies. Izumi sweat dropped. Yeah, we did. She said, you okay? Yep, I'm perfectly fine. Mei said with a thumbs up, but I might need some help getting up and walking. Izumi sighed. That was the opposite of perfectly fine. Izumi, Mei, I recommend you remain wearing your suits until we reach Recovery Girl, Durandal said. Good idea, Izumi said before she helped Mei up, put an arm around her and helped her leave the arena. She waited for them to walk into the tunnel before speaking again. Alright Mei, I can see why you wanted me to bring Durandal into that fight, but how the hell did you copy him? You know he's copyright protected, right? If Eris Enterprises finds Dash. Oh come on, Izumi, like Eris Enterprises could make someone as advanced as Durandal. Mei said, especially considering he was made by Avalon Incorporated. Izumi gagged. WTF. How the fuck did she know that? Mei, how the fuck did you find out I was made by Avalon? Durandal asked. They went to great lengths to cover that fact up, so how the hell did she find that out? I saw an Avalon Incorporated logo on Durandal's positronic brain whilst I was updating his hardware. Mei replied cheerfully. Ah, forgot about that, Durandal said nervously, forgetting that he had Avalon's logo etched into his fucking brain. Why am I only just finding out you have the Avalon Incorporated logo etched into your brain? Izumi asked, finding it rather annoying that she had only just found out about this. I forgot that it was etched on the outside of the casing and thought that Mei wouldn't be able to see it, Durandal replied. Well, you thought wrong, Izumi said, sounding rather annoyed by this, as it meant there were now 2 students who knew who made Durandal. Great. Oh, don't worry, I won't tell anyone about who really made Durandal, Mei said. It's clear he's loyal to you, not Avalon. You got that right, Durandal said. I'll tell you why I hate the people who made me, but that will have to be later. We're a bit busy trying to win the sports festival at the moment. Don't worry. Mei said cheerfully, your secret is safe with me. You bet your arse. Isaac added. Izumi sweat dropped. What vocabulary was she teaching Isaac? You know, I'm sort of glad you jumped over me and blasted me into the ground. I was almost out of fuel. Mei said, plus Isaac's reactor was almost out of juice. It's still a prototype after all. It would have been anticlimactic if I just fell from the sky. Let me guess, this was a field test? Durandal asked. Mei nodded, yep. And you two were the perfect assistants. Yes, there's a lot I still need to work on, but give me a week or 2 and she will be perfected. Well, that's good to hear, Izumi said. She could already see the benefit of having robots capable of shifting into a suit of armor would be for heroics. Being able to quickly put on a suit of armor to help deal with a threat, especially with the increase in guns that are getting smuggled into Japan. At least Isaac didn't blow up during the match. Yep. Mei said, but I would like to know the truth about Durandal at some point. Don't worry, you will, Izumi said as the infirmary came into view, but later, right now we have to get ourselves healed. Mei nodded before the two walked into the infirmary, just as President Mike announced the next fight between Real Steel and Momo. Whilst Izumi was slightly annoyed that she wouldn't be able to watch it, she already knew who was going to win. Recovery Girl turned to look at the 2 students as they walked in. The medical beds were all empty save for one that had Sue resting in it. Well, you two look to have been quite active out there, Recovery Girl said as she walked over to them. At least this is the first I've seen you here today, she said looking at Izumi, who smiled nervously. Now get out of those suits of yours, I can't exactly heal you whilst you're in them. The two students nodded before they separated and disengaged their armor, Durandal and Isaac returning to their wolf forms. Nice armor, Ribbit, Sue remarked. You think you can make something like that for me? Having a robotic companion who can cover me in armor will be useful in a wide variety of situations, Ribbit. Ha ha. May said with a smile before she sat down on one of the beds. I already have people interested in having robot companions. Sit still please, Recovery Girl said, sounding slightly annoyed before she kissed May. May didn't get banged up much during the fight, but it was better safe than sure there. You weren't hurt as much, but I recommend you still rest for a bit, she said before turning towards Izumi. And what happened to you, dear? Slight quirk overuse, Izumi replied. I'm alright, but I poured a bit too much into my legs and finger. Recovery Girl shook her head and sighed. At least you're not breaking yourself too much, she said before she kissed Izumi's hand. The effects were immediate, the pain in her legs and finger was gone, but she also felt tired. She stumbled a bit before falling back onto one of the beds. I suggest you rest for a bit, Recovery Girl said as she passed Izumi a few gummies. You needed a bit more healing than May did. You heard the woman. Sit, Durandal said, sitting down on the ground next to the bed she was in. Izumi nodded as she lay back on the bed. She wasn't going to argue with Recovery Girl, seeing that the old woman was merciless towards people's shins, especially All Might's. But she was hoping that she would be able to watch Achiko's match against Chiharu, even if it was painfully obvious who was going to win that one. She was suddenly shaken out of bed by the entire room shaking, and a loud explosion rocked the entire stadium. What the fuck was that? All eyes soon looked towards the TV that was installed in the room, showing the current match. Momo was standing on one end of the ring, with 8 cannons beside her and looking rather sheepish. The opposite end of the ring, however, was in utter carnage. Half of the ring was gone, with dust and debris everywhere. Real steel was, okay-ish. He was embedded in the opposite wall, his quirk fully active and covering his body in metal. But it was clear that he was not going to be able to continue. I have to fight her next. Izumi shrieked. She had forgotten just how terrifying Momo could be. And now she had to fight her. And this time she wouldn't have Durandal backing her up. A loud grumble came from Recovery Girl. My retirement couldn't come sooner, she said before she walked over to an empty bed, ready to receive yet another patient. Izumi spent the next few minutes doing a combination of resting and panicking, trying to come up with some way for her to defeat Momo. Not only did the girl have a versatile quirk, but also a nano core, which made her a lot more durable. Punching her wasn't going to be an option, and she made it quite clear during sparring practice that she was very good at close-quarters combat, and knew how to counter most grapples. She hadn't lost any of their quirkless sparring sessions. And now Izumi had to fight her. With a quirk that, if overused, can easily break her bone. She's probably not going to win this. Oh well, she can settle with third place. She didn't expect to win her first ever UA Sports Festival after all. Due to the damage Momo had caused to the ring, they had a 15-minute intermission to make repairs, giving Izumi plenty of time to properly rest before returning to the 1A stand, arriving back a minute before Achiko's match. Izumi, Mina said as Himiko and Toru zipped over to her. That last fight of yours was amazing. Yeah, you were awesome down there, Toru added, waving her arms in the air. Yeah. That was such a hot-blooded fight. Inesa added loudly, appearing out of nowhere. It was much better than your last one, Himiko said seriously. Minoru just wasted everyone's time during your first match. I'm glad you managed to get a good fight from your match with May. Yeah, kind of glad about it as well, Izumi said, even if May hijacked it a bit to show off that robot she made, and turned it into a boss battle. Well, at least you didn't have the victory handed to you, Mina said. Anyway, we should probably sit down. Don't want to miss Achiko's match. Izumi nodded before she sat down with her friends and watched the match. To be fair, the match was quick, very quick. Chiharu, like she did last time, crouched down and touched the floor of the ring. Achiko meanwhile, touched herself and floated upwards, completely avoiding the mines. Chiharu sighed, muttered something about expecting this to happen, and then pulled a face that was shockingly similar to a certain useless goddess when Achiko suddenly appeared right in front of her and kicked her out of the ring. And another quick round, President Mike said, "Can't you kids make it a little bit more interesting? What does he expect out of us?" Sue asked. "We're first years and it's been only a month since we started. Not many of us are combat experts, ribbit. This is why the second and third year sports festivals have more attention on them," Izumi said, shaking nervously as her fight with Momo came ever closer. "They're more entertaining." "Izumi, you okay?" Momo asked. "You look worried." "Well, I mean, I'm fighting you next," Izumi said nervously, "and I'm not sure how I'm going to be able to beat you." "Well, I can't give you any pointers since we are fighting against each other," Momo said, "but I'm sure that you'll find some way to make things challenging for me." Izumi nodded before she noticed something out of the corner of her eye. It was Himiko, smirking like Cheshire Cat, looking at her phone. She then turned towards Izumi and winked. "Oh no. And I'm sure that Raven struggled against the chains that bound her to the table, the cold air brushing against her naked body," Himiko said with a smirk, looking at her phone and reading something. She tried to create something to help her escape, but a pair of quirk suppressant cuffs prevented her from doing so. The entire class turned towards Himiko as the vampire continued to read out loud whatever it was she was reading. Most of the class was in shock by the girl openly reading something that sounded so lewd, with more than a few blushing a deep red, or lilac in Mina's case. The ones with the most severe reactions were Tenya and Momo, with Tenya looking like he had gone catatonic, and Momo looking absolutely horrified. This did not stop Himiko from continuing. A haughty chuckle to her side put a pause to any escape attempt. She turned her head to see the familiar fang-toothed smile of the Vampress, wearing a black and red corset and panties. "Vampress," Raven said. "Where am I?" She read, still smirking. Vampress once again chuckled haughtily as she walked over. "You in my own little domini, my dear Raven," she said seductively, her long dirty blonde hair cascading down her back. "Did you enjoy the gas I used to knock you out?" "I got it from a good friend of mine," she said, licking her lips as a hand moved down and caressed Raven's thigh, getting a light dash only to be suddenly tackled to the ground by Momo, who seemed desperate to get her hands on Himiko's phone. "Oh, a catfight," Yui remarked as she looked down at the two students currently fighting over a phone with a blank stare. Most of the class just watched the two students fight over the phone, Himiko giggling like mad as Momo tried, unsuccessfully, to take Himiko's phone away. "What's going on here?" Achiko asked, having walked in a few moments ago with no idea why Momo was trying to take Himiko's phone. "I believe Himiko was reading a smut fic," Mina replied, still blushing, and Momo, I believe, is trying to stop her. Oh, I see," Achiko said with a slight blush on her face. She walked over to Izumi to sit beside her, but noted that the green-haired girl was blushing a deep red. "Izumi, you're alright?" she asked, putting a hand on the girl's shoulder. "I think Himiko broke her," Durandal remarked as President Mike announced the next fight, which was mostly ignored by the students of 1A due to the current kerfuffle between Momo and Himiko. Achiko sat down next to Izumi, only to yelp and shoot back up onto her feet at the feeling of sitting on something. She looked down and saw an ear laying on the chair. An ear that suddenly floated upwards and flew over to the 1B stand. "What was that?" Toru asked. "Setsuna's ear," Kyoka replied. "Guess she got curious about what was going on over here and decided to listen in on us." "That was her ear?" Toru said, sounding surprised. "Oh, she must be lizardy," Izumi said, recovering enough to know there was a new quirk for her to analyze. "I saw during the cavalry battle that she could split her body apart and float those parts around. It's quite interesting," she said before she descended into one of her mutter storms, only being brought out of it by Midnight announcing the victor of the current match. "Anima is out of bounds. Vine takes the match," Midnight said. "Well, that went exactly how I thought it would," Izumi thought as she looked down at the ring, noticing Koji just standing out of the ring after Vine had picked him with her vines and gently dropped him out of the ring. And now her dread had returned as this meant she would be fighting Momo next. Great! And there you have it, folks. 4 students have passed to the semifinals. Present Mike said. Indeed, Midnight said with a smirk. Now that we've reached the semifinal, let's make things a bit more interesting. Heroes need to be prepared for all kinds of unexpected situations. So, let's spice things up for them. The semifinals will be a 2v2. With the two who win facing each other in the finals. Izumi, Achiko and Momo sputtered out. This was new, very new. UA had never done something like this before. Izumi had never seen a 2v2 match during the third round of the sports festival, especially one dropped in the middle of a round. What was going on? Oh, but that's not all. Midnight continued to make things even more interesting. The students will be partnered up with a student from the other bracket. She said as the large screen behind her showed the team composition for the next match. Yusako and Galastram, vs Creati and Vine. Izumi gulped. Yeah, they were fucked. That will be it for this part. I hope everyone enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and comment if you want part 33. If you want to hear more from me, subscribe. I hope to see you all in the next one.